You may know him as Grandpa, Uncle Tubal, Tubby, Mr. Uncle, Mr. Clarke, Brother Clarke, Cowboy, Skip, Roses, Rose of Sharon. But for Debbie Ann, Don, Leighton, Cheryl, and Paul, he is a father. Tubal Augustus Clarke, son of Sylvester Clarke and Eulalie Anderson Reed, Grandma Reed, was born on October 9th, 1938 in Salt Spring, St. James, Jamaica. Tubal is the second child of Sylvester and the third child of Eulalie. There are 7 siblings altogether between Tubal's mother, Eulalie Anderson Reed, and his father, Sylvester Clarke. They are Alexandra, Ann, Lurleen, Lenford, Nikki, and Grenville. Tubal's mother, Grandma Reed, was by trade a seamstress who in his early years moved first to Clarendon to join her husband, Mr. Reed, and then to London, where they eventually settled before she moved to the United States. Like his stepfather, Mr. Reed, Tubal's dad, Sylvester Clarke, or Suku, was a farmer. Tubal learned very early on what hard work meant. He had to rise early to tend to goats and other animals his father owned. If you were to ask any of his children which individual was the single biggest influence in his life as a youth, you'd hear a resounding Simeon Clarke or Uncle Simmy. Like many other Clarke Irving men, Tubal not only learned the construction trade, specifically masonry, but he was also introduced to the Seventh-day Adventist message from his beloved uncle Simmy. And under his tutelage, Tubal studied the Bible, the spirit of prophecy, and present truth. Even today, Tubal enjoys studying biblical history and biblical prophecy. It is at Uncle Simmy's house at Meggie Top that Tubal rested on his weekly return trips from Kingston to and from Mobay. Other relatives who impacted Tubal's life included Sister Maud, Miss Ann, Sister Doll, Angurst, his older sister, Aunt Lurleen, and his younger brother, Uncle Lenford. And based on our observations, his favorites included Aunt Claire, Miss Ann, Aunt Madge, and Miss Pam. Tubal set out for Kingston to find work when he was only 19. By the time Tubal left Salt Spring, in the late 1950s, many of his siblings had already left. After a brief visit to see his mom in Clarendon, where she had relocated, Tubal headed for Kingston to seek employment opportunities and reunited with his brother Lenford Clarke and Uncle Albert Baba Clarke. In his early years in Kingston, he connected with 2 particularly strong and influential women in his life: Rita Murphy, the mother of his firstborn son, Leighton, and Blanche Mason Barnett, the mother of his son, Paul. In Kingston, he also reconnected with an old flame, Melvina Jean Virgo of Hanover, and together they had his 3 daughters, Cheryl Clarke, Debbie Ann Clarke Johnson, and Dawn Clarke DeCouvey. He later married Elaine Bridget of St. Mary at the North Street SDA Church. They made a life together and raised his children, most of whom lived with him at one point or another. They both baptized shortly afterwards and became active members of the North Street congregation. This marriage was followed by a brief marriage in the United States with Joyce Shaw Clarke. His most enduring employment was as a minibus owner and operator, which combined his love of automobiles, travel, music, and people. While in Kingston, Tubal briefly took a position in the auto body trade and soon after landed a job as an ambulance driver at the Bustamante Children's Hospital. This was the beginning of a long career in the transportation industry. Tubal had the Mobay-Kingston route and made round trips 3 or 4 times per week. Of course, being the hustler he is, he also took advantage of shorter routes as opportunities arose. On the road, he was affectionately known as Cowboy, Mr. Rose, or Roses, and he was able to drive to the most violent areas in Kingston without being hurt due to his reputation as a very religious man and a man of integrity. He won transportation contracts with Judah and had provided work in the transportation business as conductors and drivers of his buses for children of church members and several distant cousins. On such trips, he entertained with an amazing variety of music and regularly served as a tour guide, spouting historical trivia about various landmarks and attractions. Tubal played an active part in the personal ministry and served in various roles, including Sabbath school teacher, deacon, and elder at the North Street SDA Church in Kingston and Brayton SDA Church in Portmore, St. Catherine. When Tubal was not transporting people about the island, he was conducting branch Sabbath schools, visiting the sick and shut-ins in hospices, and doing other missionary work. As you would expect, Tubal remains active in church today in Central Florida. Tubal's relationships were all rooted in trade, family, and faith. Two of his longtime friends in particular include the family photographer, Mr. Golding Smith, and the plumber, Brother Nugent. He was also a longtime friend of the Millers and the Warners. The most remarkable thing about Tubal is that his children have never heard him gossip or say a bad thing about anyone, friend or foe. His worst criticism stops at
him behavior grieve me, see?
Or
I don't know why him have to behave this way.
In my view, Daddy had a good balance of generosity and street smarts. I have watched him give away $1 and $5 bills here and $10 and $20 bills there to person after person who stretched out their hands begging for a smalls, only to be approached by yet another begging acquaintance later that same day who had the gall to call him mean or cheap because he gave them only a $5 or $1 bill that, mind you, they did not earn. As a child, I remember being humiliated to hear such aspersions hurled at Daddy. I felt they were so unfair. In fact, I consider Daddy to be quite generous and smart. He didn't spend much on himself, but he took care of those around him. He was at his core a businessman, and he knew full well that if he gave away too much of his cash flow to able-bodied and often ungrateful people, he wouldn't have enough to take care of his own family and to reinvest in his business so he could grow financially. So I say to you, Daddy Tubal, kudos for not being too concerned when folks called you mean. You've always been a man with a plan. Thank you for passing on your strategy and planning and budgeting skills to us.
Tubal traveled to the United States on vacation for several years before finally deciding to leave Jamaica in 1986 to join the rest of his siblings who are already there and to give his children, Debbie Ann and Paul, the last two remaining in Jamaica, an opportunity for an even better life in the United States of America. While living in New York, he attended the Mount of Olives SDA Brooklyn Church, where he was also an active member. He is now retired and enjoying life in Central Florida, where he resides with his wife, Mona Monroe Felix Clarke, and continues to explore the country on wheels. Tubal's children, Leighton, Cheryl, Debbie Ann, Paul, and Dawn, his stepchildren, Darnell and Victor, and his grandchildren, Kenneth, Priscilla, Abelard, Athena, Donica Elise, Leanne, Vaughn, Gabrielle, Tyler, and Serena, have all been touched by his industry, kindness, and humility over the years.
Hi, Grandpa.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi, Grandpa.
These are your girls, and we just want to say how much we love you and we care for you and how happy we are that God has seen it fit to bless you for another year. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to come spend some time with you and enjoy your birthday party shindig that Debbie and Dawn put together. And so Serena has something to say. What do you want to tell Grandpa?
I tell that I love him.
You love him, okay, and that's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Gabby?
Well, I just want to say that I love you, Grandpa, and you put the grand in Grandpa.
All right. So we see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Mwah.
Mwah.
Grandpa's children will agree that the values he's passed on include the following. Respect your elders. Fix your face regardless of the situation. Industry or hard work pays. Never give up even when the outlook seems bleak. Don't spend it all. Stop complaining. Treat everyone with respect. Make yourself useful. Do something constructive. Honesty is the best policy. Education is the key to success. And last but not least, put God first in everything that you do. These values have been ingrained in his children. He believed in true forgiveness and humility. And best of all, through his joy of living, he has influenced their love of life, travel and adventure, foreign cultures, and family. From all of us here, we love you, Grandpa, Daddy, Tubal, Uncle Tubal, Tubi, Mr. Uncle, Mr. Clarke, Brother Clarke, Cowboy, Skip, Roses, Mr. Rose, for all that you have done for us. We would not exchange you for any other father in the whole world.
As long as we